Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30.
College football. College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all. Let's start the show.
And welcome in to the Outputting Our Coverage show. David, I know it's a terrible day here at Outputting Our Coverage. College football season officially over.
It's day one in our morning.
But now that college football season is over, the almost just as fun college football speculatory / coaching rotation / recruiting extravaganza season may begin.
It's truly a carousel.
I mean, really, it has not taken long at all after the last game for all of the insanity to begin. Lots of stuff for us to recap there. We'll do that in the next segment. But there was a couple of pretty important games that were played. Let's talk about the Sugar Bowl first.
Oh, I forgot that even happened.
I know. A
since
lot
the
of
last time we
Alabama
had
fans would love to forget that the Sugar Bowl happened. We on the show thought it was going to be a blowout, just like everybody else
did. Yeah.
Alabama, I still think you can't even argue, much more talented team than Oklahoma. However,
Didn't look like it.
they sure didn't look like it. Full disclosure, I didn't get to watch the game. I was listening to it on the radio while I was driving. Lots of turnovers for Alabama, and I think that just kind of got them into a negative mindset.
Kind of, and I really don't think this is getting enough play. I haven't heard it anywhere in listening to all the ESPNs this past week. Oklahoma is a running football team.
Yeah.
Their quarterbacks had not completed more than 17 passes in a game all year. They are not a sling it around and throw the ball offense. That quarterback came out, who's a redshirt freshman.
Trevor Knight.
He threw the ball all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, he completed 34 passes. So, completely different offense. I guarantee you, everybody talks about Nick Saban and his time to prepare coming up against an opponent. He didn't prepare for that.
Yeah.
So, I think Oklahoma did a great job with their game
Yeah,
plan.
and Oklahoma, I mean, they executed their game plan perfectly. They deserved to win that game. I think a lot of people look back to Alabama versus Utah a few years ago and would say, Alabama wasn't up for the game. They weren't prepared for it. I don't think that was the problem this year. I mean, Alabama wanted to win that game. They wanted to prove to everybody that they still thought they were the best team in the country, and it just didn't quite work.
Right. I was really kind of disappointed with them, but at the same time, I know Alabama fans aren't the most rational of all time. You were right in that game up into the end. As terribly as you played, you're only down 7 with a chance to stop them and get the ball back.
I will say, depending on your point of view, polarizing end to A.J. McCarron's career, of course, kind of being sacked and fumbling into the end zone. That's not the way you want to see a guy's career end. That stinks.
I really got to say, I think the game plan offensively for Alabama is what beat them. I think Nussmeier, who now won't be making those calls, we'll get to that. But I think he came into the game and said, this is going to be A.J. McCarron's moment.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done that 2 or 3 other times during the season, and it never really works out.
Yeah.
A.J. McCarron is not somebody where you give him a game plan. He's somebody who fits into an offense.
Now, let's talk about somebody who did emerge, though, Derrick Henry.
He is going to be
That guy is
nasty.
going to be really good.
Yes, he
I
is.
think T.J. Yeldon may be sitting back and saying, oh, hang on a second. I'm maybe in a little bit of trouble here with my starting spot.
I was a little surprised that Yeldon didn't make the jump.
Yeah.
I know he probably was a 3rd or 4th round, maybe later than that, but you're not going to look so good next
and
year.
Alabama, we've talked about this before. They've got a stable of like 5 or 6 5-star running backs there, and it's just kind of a matter of when some of those younger guys got enough experience to get in the game. Derrick Henry is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the SEC next year.
He is.
For sure.
A lot of people are drawing comparisons to Richardson. I would say he's Richardson with more speed.
Yeah, he's scary good.
Hey.
I remember watching video of him. I believe he went to school in Florida.
Yeah. Set all kinds of state records.
He was ridiculous. And I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of things from him before the season, then kind of forgot about him, and boom, there he is.
Well, he
He's
broke
back.
his fibula in spring practice.
Yeah.
So if you're setting records in Florida for rushing the football, you're pretty good.
It's pretty good. So, surprising end to the season there for Alabama. Not necessarily as surprising, but a little bit disappointing end to the season for Auburn in the BCS championship game. It's kind of a shame the way that the game played out. Auburn really came out Florida State made a ton of mistakes in the first half. They looked
yeah.
like they were not prepared for a game on that stage.
Well, and not only made mistakes, I think they got hit in the mouth.
Yeah.
They were not expecting Auburn's defense to be that
and I
fierce.
think Florida State, as much as they said they were trying to stay grounded, I don't think they really took Auburn as seriously as they should have. So Auburn built a pretty big lead. They're up 21-3 at one point. The second half, however, for a multiple of reasons, some Auburn shooting themselves in the foot and somewhat Florida State making adjustments, Auburn's running game was really just kind of shut down, not completely, but enough to stall out, lose momentum. Whereas the opposite was kind of happening for Florida State. They finally settled down. Jameis Winston, for whatever you want to say about him, he played a great game, made some key plays when he needed to, and if nothing else, what you can say about Auburn, they were still right there at the end of the game. Trey Mason runs down the field, gets the score. Unfortunately, another team had a counterpunch this time.
They did, and you can really look to. I mean, there's tons of things you can look at in a game like that, but really the missed tackle on the short little 5-yard slant that got 55 yards. They could have gotten more with the horse collar tackle at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that completely changes the complexion of the game, though. It changes the playbook that's available.
They don't have to rush up to the ball anymore. They've only got 11 yards to go.
Right. And they can run the ball now as well, too.
Exactly.
It changes everything.
It did. And then I'll say this, and I also don't think a whole lot of people are talking about this. Auburn could have scored on that last play.
They could have.
If the offensive linemen were blocking, I don't know what they were doing. They were looking around for the ball carrier instead of blocking. Mason could have picked up at least 30 more yards.
I mean, they were trying to basically set up the same kind of play that they did on the kick return versus Alabama.
It was such a well-designed play, and it just was not executed very well.
Yeah, I mean, how miraculous would that have been to win on that play?
It would have been a perfect end of the season, really.
Yeah, but, as I told you, when you played that many close games in a season, at some point, one of them's going to go against you.
But as an Auburn fan, what a season.
Oh, absolutely. And, you got to temper your disappointment a little bit by looking at where Auburn was a year ago, 3-9, sitting at home during bowl season, to making your way into the championship game. The difficult thing for Auburn fans, myself included now, is going to be expectations for next year.
I really don't think so, because this is not a Chiswick type team where you see 28 people leaving at the end of the year.
Sure.
You've got a lot coming back.
I think you got a lot to build on, but still in any season, and Alabama knows this just like everybody else, you need the ball to bounce your way a couple times.
Oh, definitely.
And Auburn fans, you want to get back in that championship game again, but to do that, even if you play really well, a couple things bounce against you, you may not get there.
That's true.
It'll be a lot to talk about over the offseason. All in all, pretty impressive if you look at what both Alabama and Auburn did this year. It's really going to be exciting years to come here.
Oh yeah, and don't read any of the message boards. Auburn did not embarrass the SEC. If anybody, Alabama did, and I wouldn't say they did that either. They kind of let themselves down. Nobody embarrassed the SEC. The SEC had a great bowl season.
I mean, Florida State, they were a good team. I mean, we weren't really sure about how good they were, but based on what I saw in the championship game, they were good. In fact, they're probably one of the better opponents that an SEC team has played in the championship game.
It's because they're built like an SEC team. Most of their coaches come from the SEC. Their quarterback is from Alabama. I mean, it is kind of ironic that to break the 5-year streak of a national champion being from Alabama, it took a quarterback from Alabama.
Sure. So a lot to be thinking about there. We're going to come back on the other side. There's been a ton of news off the field that has happened since the season has ended.
And it's not incident related.
No, it's not. It's actual, coaching moves, things of that nature. Lots and lots and lots to talk about. Definitely want to stick around. We'll give you our opinions on that. The other side of outputting our coverage.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC, Big 10, Big 12, can't count. SEC, college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong.
And Missouri and Texas A&M as well.
Yeah, SEC preview.
Here we go.
And welcome back in to outputting our coverage. And we talked about the games. They're over with now. We are officially into the offseason. David, let's try to recap all of the coaching moves that have happened. Number one.
It's going to be tough.
I think it all started with Bill O'Brien.
It did.
At Penn State, deciding to jump to the NFL. The Houston Texans
happened literally right after our show.
Right. Well, I mean, we can go back even a little bit further, I guess. We can look at USC. hiring Steve Sarkisian. So took Steve Sarkisian from Washington.
And then Peterson went to
Right,
Washington.
so you got Chris Peterson going from Boise to Washington. If you're a Washington fan, you just got an upgrade. Congratulations.
I think so.
So working out well there for them.
If you're a USC fan, you still don't have Lane Kiffin, so congratulations.
Yeah, well done there. So then we got Bill O'Brien kind of flirting. Willie Woney decides to make that jump to the Houston Texans. Suddenly Penn State now has an opening. So you've got Penn State still open and Texas still open. Two pretty premier jobs. Penn State, not as much as it used to be. But and then, of course, rumors kind of swirling on and on about Texas, and the name we start hearing is Charlie Strong, which I'm sure is a name that you were super pumped about.
Definitely. I think it was the best hire of the group. I just didn't think they could get him.
Yeah, so they got him. Charlie Strong, kind of surprisingly to me, deciding to leave Louisville to go to Texas. There's no doubting that Texas is a premier job. However, there's a lot of politicking and a lot of booster relations required there.
Which he found out pretty early
Yeah.
when a booster came out and said he was not. He thought Charlie Strong would have been a good coordinator,
Yeah.
but was not head coach material.
So basically what that guy was doing is he was watching the incredible GIF that has been created.
the best GIF I think I've ever seen.
I'll let you explain it, David. I know you like it a lot.
If any of you have seen Blazing Saddles,
Yeah.
it may be one of the better scenes in the movie when the town is expecting the sheriff. They have the parade, they've got the banner, and the sheriff rides in, and he happens to be black. And all the band stops playing, everybody gets quiet, and the banner raises up. And somebody has superimposed Charlie Strong's face onto the sheriff. It's the perfect...
I mean, it's
the perfect-
terribly racist. It's really bad, but it's also really funny.
But it's indicative of some of the stuff you're seeing come out of Texas. The only way that you can bash Charlie Strong as a coach, I would almost think it would be to be racist, because he's done a tremendous job
He
everywhere
has
he's
done
been.
a great job. The only question mark I have is his ability to handle the insane booster situation of Texas. That's something that Mac Brown
I don't know
was
who
good
can
at.
handle that.
I mean, Mac Brown was good at doing the politics
While he was winning.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, winning makes everything easier.
It does.
That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best hire Texas could have made.
I
all
think
things
so.
Considered.
The best one out there. They're not getting John Gruden.
Right.
You can throw that away. They're not getting another NFL coach to come coach Texas.
Right. So we still have Penn State open. Lots of smoke out there about Vanderbilt's James Franklin jumping. I think it's a done deal.
It would have been their best hire.
Yeah.
And I think he's already gone.
it's gonna
They
happen.
said they're making a huge announcement tomorrow around
Yeah.
4:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
So I think, and some reports say he could get upwards of $4.5 million.
That's a lot of money.
That's a
And
lot of
we
money.
don't really know exactly how much he was making at Vanderbilt because it's a private university. They don't have to disclose that. However, if you're an SEC fan, this is good news. You do not want Vanderbilt to be good.
Right.
You need that easy victory to pick up. So,
And if
good
you
news.
if you want to rebuild a program like that, what better?
Absolutely. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job at Vanderbilt.
He has done.
Incredible. So, looking at him leaving, strangely enough, with Charlie Strong leaving Louisville, that left Louisville looking for a head coach.
This might be the strangest hire. Well, the second strangest hire that I've heard so far.
What was number one? We'll get to number one.
Yeah, we'll get to number one.
Yeah. All right. So number two, strangest hire, our good friend Bobby Motorcycle Man Petrino.
right
back.
there in Western Kentucky.
He is coming back to Louisville.
Can I tell you what I thought was going to happen when I heard he was interviewing? I thought Louisville was bringing him in to slap him in the face and be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hey Bobby, how's it going? You're in Western Kentucky. How's that going for? Oh, by the way, we don't want you."
This is insane, David.
This is crazy. They
How
didn't
does
like
that
him
end
in
well?
Louisville when he was there.
He's just going to leave for someone else at the next biggest opportunity.
He already did that
Yeah.
to Louisville.
It happened once already.
This is
He
crazy.
left them for the Falcons. There's no disputing that he's a pretty good coach.
He is an excellent offensive
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, he's going to win them some games. I know they're moving into a new conference, moving to the ACC. He'll be good for that.
He's not going to have Bridgewater.
But when he leaves, the program will be in shambles. It happened over and over and over again. When he left Louisville the first time, Steve Cragthorpe comes in, program's a disaster.
He left Atlanta.
Left Atlanta, disaster.
Right.
Went to Arkansas, left, disaster.
Although his leaving wasn't really on his own.
But, I mean,
I know.
still, you leave the program, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll have to see how far Western Kentucky implodes this year, although he's only had about 1 year there to,
No one will ever hear about that.
to do any damage. But I don't know, David. I mean, when Auburn was looking for a coach last year, there were a pretty vocal minority of Auburn fans that said, we have got to get Bobby Petrino. He's the only one who can beat Alabama. He's the only one who can win. I mean, we've seen that's totally false now.
Aren't you glad that didn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, just as an Auburn fan at the time, I was kind of not necessarily thinking clearly because of how many losses
I remember
had happened,
that you were on board for that.
and I was like, okay, maybe I could live with that. But now that I think about it, it's just, man, if Auburn had hired Bobby Petrino, how dirty would you feel every time you win?
You would not have been in the national championship game.
No, I mean, absolutely not. But I don't know. I mean, it says all the wrong things for Louisville.
It does.
Every single piece of this is bad.
Until they start winning, and then nobody cares.
Yeah, that's true. But
But how are you going to recruit if you're Bobby Petrino?
Yeah, they've already had a huge decommitment today, I believe, from a 4 or 5 star player gone.
Yeah.
I
Is he going to Texas?
I don't know. That might be a boon for Texas recruiting.
Maybe. Although 4 and 5 stars are not any big news for Texas.
Sure. So I was very shocked to see that. I've actually seen a rumor, we'll see if this comes true, that Petrino is looking at Gene Chizik to be his defensive coordinator.
That would be awesome.
How crazy would that be, David?
That would be good. I would like that.
I mean, I would.
And that way we wouldn't have to hear about Petrino or Chizik for like 2 or 3 years.
I mean, I would have to DVR every Louisville game and watch them.
Well, they're in the American Conference.
Well, they're moving to ACC next year.
We're still never going to hear about them until they get drubbed by Florida State.
You're right. Just a train wreck, really.
Let's talk about the number one weirdest
Speaking
hire.
of train wrecks.
This is awesome. I am so on board with this.
So news came out a couple days ago. Of course, Michigan, this is kind of weird how these things come together sometimes. Michigan fired their offensive coordinator, Al Borges, who you may remember as the offensive coordinator for some of Tommy Tuberville's more successful Auburn years.
Right.
Like 2004, he was there.
Who I think did a pretty good job with what he had.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a whole lot to work with.
Took him from a spread offense to a more pro style.
Right. So he's gone, gets cut loose by Brady Hoke. At that point, Alabama's offensive coordinator, former offensive coordinator at this point, Doug Nussmeier, gets a pretty big raise to become offensive coordinator at Michigan. And at the time, I was thinking, that seems strange to me. I don't understand, if Michigan was willing to pay him more,
move.
I'm sure that Alabama could match whatever Michigan was willing to pay if they wanted to keep him.
I don't know.
So,
with this new hire, it kind of looks like Alabama already had their heart set.
That's what I'm thinking. At the time, I was like, that's kind of a weird move. I don't necessarily understand that. Rumors start coming out that one Lane Kiffin,
formerly of USC,
might be a candidate for the job. And we heard a couple weeks ago that Lane Kiffin came in to advise the offense.
Right.
It's almost like the situation with Texas, where they fired the defensive coordinator Manny Diaz during the year, and they had brought in the other guy, I can't remember what his name is, whoever took over, they brought him in over the summer as an advisor.
Right.
And then just kind of kicked the
current
guy to the curb. So kind of the same situation. And now everything makes sense. Lane Kiffin this afternoon announced as Alabama's new offensive coordinator, David.
That's kind of crazy.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Maybe they were impressed with the way that he was able to have a 2 running back system at USC with Reggie Bush and that guy named White.
Yeah, but overall, Lane Kiffin is just not a good coach.
Well, that's true. But he's been a head coach everywhere he's been since his offensive coordinator days at USC.
Okay, well,
and maybe he's just not cut out for head coaching.
Maybe. I don't know. I just don't see any possible way that the personality of Lane Kiffin and the personality of Nick Saban can coexist in any universe.
Oh, I think it can, because I think Nick Saban really hates offense to the core and loves to just hand it to a strong personality and let them take it.
So is that what you want? You want Nick Saban
No.
handing the offense to Lane Kiffin?
I'm not saying I would do it or I would want it as an Alabama fan, but I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
So if you're an Alabama fan, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I'm super excited about this hire, number 10 being I'm going to jump off a bridge about this hire, where should you be?
Probably around North Korea level. I would think that's the level of alert you would need to be on. But I've got to tell you, my top 2 Twitter tweets about Lane Kiffin's hire. The first one was, it said, Lane Kiffin hired as offensive coordinator of Alabama, thus sealing Alabama as the most hated team in all the world.
Well, that is very true.
And which is, I think they may have made a move for power there. My favorite one, though, said, Lane Kiffin came in and advised Alabama on the offense for the Oklahoma game. How'd that work out for you, Bama?
Well, that is also true. Now, of course, bowl fortunes with new offensive coordinators don't always mean a whole lot, because if we look, we were just talking about Al Borges, and when he got fired, pretty quickly after that. You remember the Tony Franklin experiment?
Oh, man.
Yeah, Tupperville brought in Tony Franklin for the bowl game, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, and it looked like a huge success.
Oh, yeah.
Auburn just drubbed Clemson. I mean, it was great.
Figment of your imagination.
Then the next year, once the actual games got in, it didn't work out so well.
Yeah,
so I would say bowl games are not a great predictor of future performance, but still, I'd be pretty darn nervous about Lane Kiffin taking over the offense.
Nick Saban was quoted as saying about Lane Kiffin, he has a very good understanding of the game, and I have always been impressed with what I saw in the games he called. He coaches with a great deal of passion and enthusiasm and also does an excellent job as a teacher.
Here's a question. What do you think happens? Please tell me that Alabama plays Tennessee at Tennessee this year. Please tell me that happens.
I hope so. I can find it very quickly for you.
Because that would be legendary.
That would be the best.
I mean, can you imagine?
But all the Tennessee fans are really just laughing.
Oh, of course they are. They're like, do you realize what you've just done?
Alabama has no idea what they've just done.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll prove us wrong. Maybe he'll work better as a coordinator. But
I think after the first couple games, if there's no huge collapses in the offense, we'll forget that he's there.
I mean, to me, this is a huge, huge risk. Maybe it pays off, maybe it doesn't. But
you know what this really could be a play at? And I did not think about this until just now. It could be a play at what Lane Kiffin has been hired for every job he's ever been hired.
To be fired?
No. That's a good guess. Alabama just wants him for 1 year to be the offensive coordinator because they know they're losing Kirby Smart next year. And they want Daddy to come and coach their defense after Kirby's gone.
Oh.
This is
interesting.
Alabama's in it for the long play. That's what it is.
I don't know, though. I mean, even Monty Kiffin, not what he once was.
Well, he's like 95.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So, who should they have hired?
Anybody but. I mean,
I guess we can look at it from that perspective too. What offensive coordinator is out there that you would want to hire if you're Alabama? I mean, was there anybody that could have been promoted from within?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you'd really want that. They're wanting a pretty big name. I mean, Nussmeier was very established at Washington. Yeah. I think they'd want somebody with a bigger name than that. I don't know who you get. It depends. I really think it depends on what direction Alabama's offense is going. I really think this next year is a cornerstone year.
So, what do you think? Are they going to speed things up a little bit?
I think they're going to add that flavor to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to change a whole... I think they'll still be a pro style. I don't think you're going to see Alabama running a hurry-up shotgun.
No, I don't think you see that either, but there might be some wrinkles there.
I think you'll see some wrinkles because they're getting banged with it at every corner.
You're about to tell me some good news, aren't you?
October the 25th, 2014, Alabama travels to Neyland Stadium.
God. Just mark your calendars right now, people, because you're going to want to... You should just go to that game. Don't watch it on TV. I can imagine the level of booing is going to be amazing. The signs in the stadium are going to be incredible.
Since when has a coordinator caused so much angst in a stadium?
That's wow. I mean, that's going to be nuts.
That I cannot wait.
Because a Lane Kiffin coach team has not played at Tennessee since he left. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah, that has not happened.
Yeah, wow.
That's awesome. I cannot wait. I'm a big fan of chaos. This is the perfect hire.
Oh, yeah.
I love
this.
It's
just been a chaotic offseason, and I'm not sure what's still to come. I guess,
You got Vandy, Boise State still to fill.
Boise State has been filled by Brian Harsin, who was at Arkansas State.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
formerly at Boise State.
So you've got Arkansas State to fill, which basically guarantees you a job at a D1 school next year.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I could see... I don't know. I don't know who Vandy would go after.
Does it matter at this point?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of headed back to mediocrity at this point, I would assume, but it's been a pretty crazy offseason. I think things will finally start to slow down a little bit now, though.
I'm a chaos theory guy.
Okay.
I root for chaos almost all the time. Lane Kiffin accepts the offensive coordinator position at Alabama, but then gets offered the head coaching job at Vandy and takes it and is crosstown rivals with Tennessee.
Oh, God.
That would be awesome.
That would be nuts. I don't think
this is going to have to happen.
I don't think it's
going to happen. We'll be talking about it next week.
I hope we are, but I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. Let's come back on the other side. I got a few other random things I want to talk about. I also want to talk about, what are we going to do now? We got to talk about next year.
That's right.
We'll talk about where we would slot some teams at the top next year. maybe give some crazy predictions.
I'm
Way
ready
too
for
early
some-
crazy predictions.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for that.
We're going to take a quick break here on Outputting Our Coverage. Welcome back to the Outputting Our Coverage show.
How you like the new jig?
That is legendary. I really like that a lot. I was actually dancing around the room, and David had to pull me back in, to my seat here to finish the show. So
You are dressed as leprechauns.
I am. So of course, like we said, we need to start talking about next year because this year is over now, and Auburn didn't win and Alabama didn't win, so nobody really wants to talk about that. But
Right.
Let's talk about next year. First of all. First thing, a lot of players having to decide at this point whether they want to go pro early or not. Doesn't seem like this is a year where a lot of players are deciding to stay in school.
No.
I think overall, the senior level draft class is pretty weak this year.
It's going to continue to get weaker, I think.
Yeah. So, with Auburn, of course, the big one, Trey Mason, going pro. It stinks if you're an Auburn fan. He's a great player, but there was really nothing more he could accomplish at Auburn. So I think it's probably the right move for him. Additionally, Greg Robinson, the left tackle, who's been pretty dominant this year, probably a first-round pick. You can't pass that up if you're an offensive lineman. Reese Dismukes, the center for Auburn, he did say he is staying. I think that's probably about it for Auburn. You're not going to see any of the other guys looking to jump there.
No, and I think you're going to see a pretty good team come back.
Yeah.
Especially, I think you're going to see some maturation on the defensive side.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to that later in different shows, but
Sure.
I think that's going to be a big jump.
Alabama has quite a list of folks deciding to go pro there as well. C.J. Mosley,
Right.
He's gone.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Cyrus Kwanjo, he's gone.
I think if you've watched Alabama play this year, you're kind of happy about that one.
He's still a great player, though. I mean,
He is,
he's
but
good.
man,
He's
did
made
he-
some mistakes.
Man, did he look silly
Yeah.
on some of
Clinton Dix, he's gone.
Right.
Vern Lundquist just devastated.
Oh,
He won't be
he
able to say
did.
that
That
name.
was- that was terrible.
Vern Lundquist currently lobbying to do NFL next year just so he can say, ha.
I can't wait till...
Clinton
Is he
Dix.
not retiring next
I
year?
don't know. I'm pretty sure he's an android
He might be.
of some sort.
He's on Jelly Bean.
So they're gone. Florida State's had some pretty big names as well. Jernigan, the big defensive tackle who gave Auburn a lot of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
He's gone.
When he could keep his butt on the field.
And Florida State's wide receiver who caught the winning pass, Kelvin Benjamin,
Right.
he is gone as well. So there's a lot of pretty big-name players that are leaving, David. And, and the SEC is really going to have a drastically different look next year.
They are, yeah. Whole new landscape.
Yeah. So
Between A.J. McCarron graduating,
yeah, you think about all the quarterbacks that are leaving.
Mettenberger, Murray.
Yep. Manziel
Yeah, Manziel decided to go.
as well. Connor Shaw for South Carolina.
I tell you what, that guy has got some talent.
Connor Shaw has the most wins of any quarterback in South Carolina history. A lot of people don't realize that.
I did not realize that.
He was an outstanding player. I mean, Steven Garcia got all the publicity for his drinking and escapades, but Connor Shaw was quietly a very good and a very tough quarterback. Who,
And any time South Carolina needed a play,
Yeah.
he came in and was able
and
to
a lot of
produce.
times when he was injured, too.
Yeah.
Man, very, very tough competitor there. So you've got a lot of teams looking for new starting quarterbacks next year. Fortunately, for the first time ever in Gus Malzahn's coaching career in college, he will have a returning starting quarterback
That's pretty impressive.
in Nick Marshall. So you look at what he's
That
done.
streak is impressive.
Yeah, you look at what he's done with different quarterbacks. Nick Marshall is going to have to take his game to another level. And, I would say at this point, it is not impossible that Jeremy Johnson, the freshman who didn't play a whole lot this year, could overtake Nick Marshall. I'm not saying
I
it's
really
going to
don't
happen.
know.
I'm just saying it's not impossible.
I would have been with you for most of this past season. However, the improvement I saw out of Marshall from the SEC championship game to the national championship game in his passing.
Yeah.
It's almost like he had a spring camp with the 30 days.
And if he can continue to improve, it's probably not likely that Jeremy Johnson would pass him. But I would also say not impossible. I think there's going to be a battle there in the spring. I don't think it's a slam dunk. Nick Marshall, you're definitely the starting quarterback for
I think that would just rip the team apart.
It probably would, but I think a little competition there, even if it's not 100% genuine, all it can do is make Nick Marshall a better passer.
That's true. So who's going to be Alabama's quarterback next
That's
year?
a great question. Honestly, I think it might be somebody who's not on the team right now.
It may be. A lot of people are pointing to Florida State's backup.
Yeah, Coker.
Right.
I think he might be a realistic option. I don't know. That is a huge question mark for Alabama next year. And that, the thing to me is most teams, if they have some big questions at starting quarterback, that's a pretty significant question mark for the team as a whole. We're looking at some way too early top 25 predictions. People are just kind of assuming that Alabama's got somebody else there to step up. That may be a dangerous assumption.
I think Alabama can win without a strong quarterback. My problem is you've seen a steady decline on defense over the last 3 years. Can they replenish the defense? Do they have the talent, or have they dried up?
Well, let's talk about the way too early top 25 here on SportsIllustrated.com. Number one, don't think you can really argue with this. Florida State, pretty much their main playmakers are coming back.
I have the theory that if you win the national championship, you should be ranked number one until someone.
I agree. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And they're losing a couple people just like anybody is. But overall, Jameis Winston obviously is back, so I think you got to put them up there.
I agree.
Number two, they've got Alabama. And this is one I have a little bit of an issue with. I do not know that I would put Alabama that high going into next year. They have a lot of positions to fill.
There's a lot of questions.
The quarterback question is a huge one to me. You saw what happened in this game against Oklahoma, where A.J. makes a couple mistakes. There's a couple turnovers. It basically lost them the game.
Turnovers do not fit into a Saban game.
Right.
That's just it's not acceptable.
The offensive style is not built to overcome those types of things.
No.
So I think there's some pretty significant question marks. Granted, I'm not saying that Alabama's going to have a losing season next year. But
number two assumes that they either go undefeated or have one loss.
And I don't know. I'm just not buying that at this point. Now, if some kind of transfer quarterback comes in or something like that, that might change my opinion a little bit.
I'd still don't change the opinion until I find out what their plan on defense is to counteract this up-tempo offense.
Right.
Because right now, I don't see an answer.
Right. See, the thing that is interesting to me is if you look at this ranking here, and under each one of them they have a section that said why this ranking could be flawed. And they mention Lane Kiffin in there. They also mention the chemistry between the two. Not mentioned at all is the quarterback question.
Right. Or any questions about the players who are on the field.
I think there's some legitimate issues there to be asked. So, number three, they've got Oregon.
Okay.
Marcus Mariota's coming back. So that's a pretty big return.
Well, he came back this year, too.
Right. So, I think they could pretty much do like they did this year. They can go in and beat most of the teams in the Pac-12, but I'm not sure when they have to play a really, really good team that they can do it.
I think Oregon's hit their ceiling. I think we've seen the best that Oregon can produce.
Yeah.
They can kill people in the regular season and then lose when they face a Stanford.
I also disagree with the next one. At number 4, Ohio State. No.
That's only because Braxton Miller's coming
Braxton
back.
Miller's coming back, but we saw exactly what happened as soon as they had to play a real team this year.
Wild and crazy prediction number 1.
What's
you ready?
that? I'm ready.
Penn State beats Ohio State next year.
I think that could happen. James Franklin, man, he could do that.
It's immediate turnaround.
He could do that, yeah.
They've got a great freshman quarterback.
All right, number 5 is ridiculous. Oklahoma. That's crazy. They're not that good.
Yeah, that's jumping on the...
sure they won against Alabama, but they lost to a terrible, terrible Texas team this year. That's crazy. Auburn all the way down to number 6. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's a little low?
I think more than anything, the person who made this list thought that Trey Mason carried Auburn.
Yeah.
Because he probably didn't pay attention to Auburn until the last 4 or 5 games. And you know what? Trey Mason did get a lot better. Auburn was pretty good when Trey Mason was struggling a little bit at the beginning of the year. So I think they'll be able to find running back by committee. Artis Payne.
Yeah, man, he hardly got to play at all this year. But
he was a great runner. He was good when he got his chances. Yeah. So I think that's overblown. I think the defense is better. I think Auburn is in the playoffs next year.
I hope so. Yeah, I think on offense especially, you only lose a couple guys. You lose Trey Mason, you lose Greg Robinson, and you lose Jay Prosh.
The offensive line, for the most part, stays together.
The rest of the offensive line is intact. They were spectacular this year. You mentioned Artis Payne, a huge recruit. Rock Thomas, who's a pretty stellar player here in Alabama, may be able to come in and play a bit part. You got Corey Grant coming back. On defense, you've got a couple of big time recruits at linebacker who may be able to come in and help give you some early help there. You hope that Carl Lawson and those guys, Montravius Adams, can get it to an even higher level next year. The one thing that hurts a little bit on the defensive line, you lose D Ford, you lose a little bit of that impressive depth that Auburn had this year.
Right, but I think the secondary is going to get more comfortable in the defense. I think everybody as a whole is going to get more comfortable, and you're going to be able to install some new stuff over the offseason.
So where would you slot Auburn?
4.
You put them at 4?
I put them at 4. You know what? I might even put them at 3 ahead of Oregon, just because I'm not.
Okay, here's a question.
I'm not fascinated.
Do you think Auburn should be ahead of Alabama?
Yes. I think there's way too many questions right now with Alabama. Now, if Alabama gets a couple transfers, or we hear some big news about their defense getting some JUCOs, maybe not. I think it's a close margin. I think I put Auburn at number 2.
Does the same theory apply? You said Florida State won the championship; they should be number 1.
Yes.
Auburn beat Alabama, and they returned most of their players.
Right.
So should they still be ahead of Alabama?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you'll see that in a lot of places. But just a question to be asked. We'll keep going down the list. Number 7, Stanford.
I like that.
Okay, there. Number 8, Michigan State. I still think they might have been a little bit overrated.
I don't know, but we've said that the last 4 years, and they keep going to the Rose Bowl.
I mean, they were super motivated to beat Stanford. I mean, they beat a pretty average Ohio State team. I don't know. Number 9, they've got UCLA.
Way too high.
I think there should be some more SEC teams in the top 10, David.
I think
that's my question.
This is SEC fatigue. Is what you're seeing.
You've got LSU at 10. I guess that's an interesting question to ask at this point. Who would you say? I think we can both agree that Auburn and Alabama are top teams in the SEC next year.
Right.
Who's right after them?
South Carolina.
Even without Connor Shaw?
Even without Connor Shaw. I think they've got enough as a team to be top 15.
I don't think a lot of people realize this, but in the final poll this year, South Carolina was number 4.
Oh, yeah, they finished crazy high.
Which I don't know that I necessarily agree with that.
They beat some pretty big teams there at the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess so. But, Texas A&M, I think takes a significant step back next year without Manziel.
Yeah, I think they've still got some talent at the quarterback position, but the offense is going to look very different.
Yeah, and the defense is atrocious.
It is.
They're not going to be able to win with that defense if
they've got to
figure
something out on defense.
It's not going to happen. LSU, Mettenberger's gone.
Georgia, maybe. I think they've got enough pieces.
But did you watch Georgia's bowl game?
I did watch Georgia's bowl game, but I really think that the young guys on defense are going to really step it up. I think Georgia's defense is pretty good next year.
Yeah. Obviously, Florida has a huge curve to overcome.
They do.
Tennessee, still a huge curve to overcome. I think overall...
is still going to be middle of the road.
I really think next year you're going to see Auburn and Alabama and everybody else. Probably. Which is crazy. I mean, it's going to make for some really exciting football.
I got to throw LSU in there. They've got too much talent not to be...
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that.
I think you
kind of got a top 3 there.
Yeah.
And, of course, LSU beat Auburn this year, so I think they have a right to be up there.
And they're all 3 in the West.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Just think about if you could get a transfer request into the East, you pretty much got it made these days.
Oh, yeah.
Especially now, Vandy, with James Franklin gone, I mean, it's just made it that much easier for you.
That's right.
That's crazy. If Tennessee can't win now, with James Franklin leaving, Tennessee's just screwed.
Right. I think they got the coach there. I mean, you got to give more than a year.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I'm just saying, if you can't do it now, you got some big problems.
Right.
Big problems.
Sign the checks, get the kids there.
Yep. David, another thing that I want to talk about real quick. I know you want to talk about baseball, but we talked about the GIF of Charlie Strong.
So good.
Did you see the video of the Alabama mom?
I did. Mrs. Wrecking Ball.
Yes. If you've not seen this, totally worth YouTubing. In continuing the tradition of Alabama fan antics, this woman, presumably drunk at the Sugar Bowl,
says she wasn't,
captured by amateur footage, kind of taunting Oklahoma fans
who were taunting back.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a back and forth.
It was a two-way.
It was
not unusual,
right?
Game. Her husband, whatever, I don't know if he's her husband, boyfriend, whatever.
I think it was her husband.
Pulls her away. She sort of does a sneak attack, sort of like, if you're watching Chris Berman, sort of whoop, 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 whoop.
Yep.
Just like curling back around.
She
shimmied around, and then dive bombs from about 3 rows up onto the guys.
Did not see that one coming.
Starts kicking violently like a 4-year-old learning to swim.
Was punching initially as she was coming down.
It was awesome, David.
And then tried to tell the officials who came up to escort her out that they should escort out the Oklahoma fans.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, you can judge that any way you want to. An interview after the fact,
which surprised me, the fact that we got an interview with this woman after the fact.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that much, but she basically says that she was doing it to defend her son's honor or something of that nature. She was not drunk, and that she would do it again.
Yeah, wrong way to go, lady.
I was like, wow. That's when
you went the opposite way of the 3 things that you should have said.
I don't even remember where I was.
Right.
So at this point, we all remember the incident at Crystal, the incident here. Does Alabama have to write like some sort of apology letter to the city of New Orleans? Or?
No, they don't have to do that. This is not that egregious. This is just one fan. They might have to write an apology letter to the
But Harvey
Oklahoma
Updike was just one fan too.
Yeah, but are you putting what she did and what he did on the same level?
No, I mean, this was obviously much more fun to watch on YouTube
right.
than trees getting poisoned. So.
Yeah. So I don't think you can compare those two.
You do have to like that. Okay, I know you want to talk about baseball. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame.
Okay, I didn't think I'd get this in.
You're getting it in right now.
So Greg Maddux comes up for his Hall of Fame vote. Everybody knows he's getting in for his ballot. A lot of people assume that he might get in unanimously. First player in history to ever do that. About 4 days before the votes come up, LA releases, a lot of their press writers release who they're going to vote for. And one guy in particular says, I'm not voting for Maddux because I'm not voting for anybody who played anywhere near what he determined was the steroid era, which is just kind of hypocritical if you ask me.
That's pretty ridiculous.
It's crazy that you get to define what the steroid era was
right.
and who did it and who didn't. Anyway, this was the final straw for Dan Le Batard. Dan Le Batard has been doing a radio show in Miami, been writing baseball for a long time. He's now with ESPN, and he actually came out on his show the day after the vote and told everybody that he gave his vote away to Deadspin and let the fans and the viewers vote. He approved the voting and signed his name and sent it in.
So Deadspin is basically a website, kind of an independent news,
right?
Sports news website.
So, and it was a good ballot. I mean, there were not any crazy names on there. It was a pretty good ballot. Better than the LA writers' ballot. Well, the Baseball Hall of Fame came out the day after, revoked Le Batard's right to vote, which is completely within their right.
Sure.
But everything I read is a huge black eye on baseball, not on Le Batard.
Sure.
How do you feel about
No, I
this?
agree. I mean, I think, it's his vote. He should be able to do whatever he wants with it.
Right.
That's how I feel. And,
if you're going to kick somebody out who's making this...
Yeah, kick the other guy out.
Exactly.
That's stupid. I mean, he's the one who's breaking rules.
I mean, anybody who didn't vote for Maddux ought to get banned for life.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy won 4 consecutive Cy Youngs. He won all kinds of Golden Gloves. Everybody knows Maddux.
It just seems like continuously baseball cannot get out of its own way.
It keeps slipping. That's what it does. It finds a way to slip every year.
Yep.
Sad.
That does. This show will not slip. We will be back next week to talk about more college football. We'll talk about Lane Kiffin going to Vanderbilt, hopefully.
I'm so excited about that story breaking.
We'll see what happens there.
If that happens, it broke here, because I guarantee you no one's talking about it.
We broke it by accident. So stick around for next week. We'll be back on the Outputting Our Coverage show. We'll see you then.
Thank you.